Hey there, and welcome to today's Explainer. I am so glad you could join us. Today, we're diving into a really fantastic topic, traveling by train versus taking planes or buses. Now, if you are working on your English, you are in the exact right place. I'm going to be speaking nice and clearly throughout this entire Explainer. And remember, every single English sentence I say will pop right up on your screen as English subtitles, along with Ukrainian translations for all our key phrases. It's totally going to help you learn and remember. So, let's jump right in, shall we? Really quickly, here is our agenda for today. We're going to cover an introduction, the main advantages, and the disadvantages of train travel. Then, we'll look at vocabulary and context, do a little speaking practice, and finish up with a final summary.
All right, Section 1, Introduction to Train Travel. Let's get this journey started.
So when you first arrive at the railway station or the terminus, you'll probably head over to the booking office or maybe the information office. Now, step 1 is absolutely crucial. You need to buy a ticket in advance. Let me say that again. Buy a ticket in advance. Of course, you can also just use a ticket machine. Then you'll need to choose a one-way ticket or a return ticket if you're coming back. Finally, always check if you can get a reduced fare. That just means a cheaper price, which is especially handy if you're a student or an elderly person.
Next up, let's talk about the different kinds of trains. Depending on your trip, you might take an express, local, night, long distance, or an electric train. And once you're inside, there are quite a few different carriages. You can choose a first-class carriage, a second-class carriage, a sleeping carriage, a carriage with reserved seats, or a compartment carriage. So basically, passengers just choose their carriage based on their financial possibilities, how much money they actually want to spend.
Moving on to Section 2, the advantages of train journeys. Why do people love trains so much?
Well, this brings us to a brilliantly useful little speaking pattern. If you're taking an exam, you can confidently say, one of the main advantages is... Listen to how I use this here. One of the main advantages is comfort. On a train, you have these great reclining seats with really comfortable leg rests. If you're traveling overnight, you might get an upper berth or a lower berth to sleep on. And hey, if you get hungry, you can just stroll over to the dining car. The attendant or conductor will even bring you your bedding. It's pretty great.
Another massive advantage comes down to money and stress. Train travel is usually way cheaper than flying, and you can take so much more luggage. You can bring a suitcase, a briefcase, a rucksack, or a duffel bag, all without paying those annoying extra fees. Now, if you prefer to travel light, you just pop your bag right on the luggage rack. It's also just so much less stressful. Trains usually leave on the dot, meaning exactly on time, and they run to schedule. Plus, you simply show your ticket to the ticket inspector and boom, the train arrives right in the city center.
But hey, a good argument is a balanced argument, right? Let's move to Section 3, the disadvantages of train travel.
Here is your second mini speaking pattern, and it's absolutely perfect for showing a contrast. You say, however, there are some disadvantages. Let's try it. However, there are some disadvantages. For example, trains are sometimes late. When that happens, we say they fall behind schedule. And honestly, if you fall behind schedule and you need to change trains, those delays become a seriously big problem.
Also, really old trains can sometimes have pretty bad conditions. We're talking dirty windows, bad toilets, and no air conditioning, Wi-Fi, or even sockets to charge your phone. Then there's the whole lack of privacy issue. In a shared compartment, you might be stuck listening to loud conversations and noise, which means you're definitely not going to sleep well. Finally, we have to mention security. Cases of theft do happen, and sometimes passengers can behave aggressively. This is exactly why some people argue we need more police on trains.
All right, on to Section 4, useful vocabulary in context. Learning words in a real sentence is always the best way to go.
Let's practice 2 really crucial phrases. The first one is travel light. Travel light. This just means to take very little baggage with you. For example, you might say, I don't like carrying heavy bags, so I always travel light. The second phrase is run to schedule. Run to schedule. This means to depart and arrive exactly on time. So a good example would be, in Japan, the trains always run to schedule.
And here is your third speaking pattern. When you want to share your own personal choice, you simply say, personally, I prefer. Let's try plugging our vocabulary into that. Personally, I prefer a carriage with reserved seats because it is cheaper, but sometimes I choose a compartment carriage for more comfort and privacy. That right there is a fantastic, advanced sentence structure that examiners absolutely love.
Section 5, Speaking Practice and Models. Okay, let's actively practice what we've been learning.
here is our first question. I'm going to read it nice and slowly for you. What are the advantages of traveling by train? Take a second. Think about the vocabulary we just talked about. Think about the seats, the luggage, and exactly where the train arrives.
Okay, and here is a great model answer. The main advantages are comfort, lower prices, and more space for luggage. Passengers can travel on a lower or upper berth, and trains usually arrive directly in the city center. Notice how we group those nouns so clearly. Comfort, lower prices, space. That is exactly the kind of structure that sounds supernatural and gets you high scores.
Let's try just one more. Here's the second question. How do people usually prepare for a train journey? I'll give you a brief moment to think. What do they buy? What do they pack? And here's our model answer. Before the journey, people usually buy a ticket in advance, pack their suitcase or rucksack, arrive at the railway station, and board the train. Do you see how naturally that flows? We're pairing the verbs and the nouns together perfectly. Buy a ticket, pack a suitcase, board the train.
Almost done. Section 6, final summary for exams. To wrap up your answer beautifully, you really want to use these two essential speaking patterns. To sum up, traveling by train has both advantages and disadvantages. In my opinion, trains are still one of the best ways to travel. Using phrases like "to sum up" and "in my opinion" shows you are totally confident and your thoughts are incredibly organized.
So, here is a final retelling structure that you should absolutely memorize. Point 1. Trains are comfortable, affordable, and convenient. Point 2. You can relax and enjoy beautiful landscapes. Point 3. They are the best way to travel despite delays and a lack of privacy. Seriously, if you can just remember these 3 points, you'll be able to speak independently and confidently about this topic anywhere.
Well, we've covered a ton of ground today, from booking a ticket to dealing with delays, all while building some truly fantastic English sentences. So I want to leave you with this final thought. Which speaking pattern are you going to use to describe your next train journey? Is it going to be, "Personally, I prefer"? Or maybe one of the main advantages is, try practicing them out loud today, and I promise you'll be an expert in no time. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep up the amazing work with your English.